Hello and welcome to Infinite Software's Word Export Training video number 1, where we'll discuss some basics regarding how to create Word exports from Codebeamer.
Today we are going to go through some simple use cases, and the focus will be on the methodology and the basics behind exporting Word templates from Codebeamer. The two most important tools we're going to use today are merge fields and bookmarks to export data from Codebeamer. It's important to note that there's always a default template for every export from Codebeamer, but if you want to create our own templates to cover more complex use cases and include the exact custom data that we want, we can go ahead and create our own template. Before beginning, it's very useful to show formatting marks and bookmarks in Word. So the formatting marks are going to be found here. And just please do note that I'm using a Mac. The bookmarks can be shown if you go to your view options and check this box here. Okay, so let's get started with the actual template, more specifically with merge fields. We are starting with a blank Word document, as you can see, and we're going to build this template from nil. And each merge field will define which property of work items, which fields I want to export. So imagine a simple use case where we're just interested in listing the ID and the name of the work items in a tracker. So I'm looking at a quite simple system requirements tracker here in Codebeamer. And what I've done is I checked this box here to show work item key IDs. So I also see the ID, not just the name, and the table of contents on the left side of the document view here. And what we're going to do as a very first example is to export the work item IDs and their names, or summary fields is what we also call them quite often. I will navigate back to Microsoft Word, and I'm going to insert a merge field. So to do that, again on a Mac, I navigate here to inserting a field. I'll click on that. I'll have to select mail merge from the categories. And then if I just click into the field names and type M, I will be redirected to merge fields. What I have to do in this case is to first provide the context of on what level I'm exporting. So we're talking about work items. The command for that is item. And then the first one is going to be ID. Okay. Then I'll just click space. So there's a bit of separation between my two separate blocks of data that I'm exporting. And then I'll insert a second field. Again, I'll search for merge fields, and then type item dot name. Okay. So I've used merge fields to, first of all, export the work item IDs, and second of all, export the work item names. So I'll save this file, and I will go back to Codebeamer. And there are two ways of exporting. I can either export all of the work items from a tracker, or a selection. As you can see, there are two separate options for that. So let's go with export to Office, the collective one. And there's a bit of options here that you can select, but right now we're interested in using our own template. So there are two ways of using user-created templates to export data from Codebeamer. You can store them in the Documents module of Codebeamer, and then you can use them for each and every tracker where you store them. In that case, I would be using this drop-down menu, but right now I'll just upload the template from my hard drive. And this is the one I created, the demo template file. I'll add that and click on export. We're looking for a green little pop-up here on the right bottom corner. Great. It's been downloaded. I'll open it up. And as you can see, we get an error message. Well, why is that? Okay, so far we have not yet provided the necessary loop for Codebeamer to know how it should export items. So we did provide the what. It was the work item ID and the work item name that we wanted to export. We didn't really specify how it should export. So the how is how bookmarks come into play. Because we need an iteration, we need a loop that will be carried out by Codebeamer when exporting data. So to do that, well, I'll open up the demo template file. We have to select both of these merge fields. Of course, we want to create a loop that includes both the ID and the name, because we're going to look to export the corresponding ID and name for each and every item across either the whole tracker or the selection in Codebeamer, as mentioned before. So I have to click on bookmark, And it's very important to use the necessary syntax here. I will provide the bookmark name. It's loop_item. I will add that. I will save the demo template file, navigate back to Codebeamer. I will retrace all those steps that we have done in the process that led up to the, well, failed export, let's say. It wasn't actually failed, but we didn't manage to export the data we wanted to. Okay. Let's see what happened now. As you can see, the system knew that it has to carry out this action for all of the items in the loop, which was the loop item bookmark. So now we have on the left the work items, and on the work item IDs, and on the right their summaries. So as you will note, these items are not very well formatted. There is no clear styling. There is no separation between the lines. So all of that can be done via the configuration of the template itself. Let's go back to the template. We can say that we want to assign a certain styling to this particular pair of merge fields. So I'll say that, well, they should be heading 1 styled, and then all the exports will also be styled with the help of heading 1. But what I want to do right now is also add another merge field to the current template. I will add the description. So as you note, all of the work items in our current tracker have some sort of description. That's also very commonly exported. I'm going to insert another merge field. This time it's going to be item.description. Please note that if you make a typo here, the safest way of correcting it would be to delete and recreate the merge field itself, especially if you're using a Mac. If you just make a change in the text itself, I'll show you what I mean. So if you would have realized that there's a typo here and you type into the description here, just via the UI and not into the actual configuration of the merge field, then it will not refresh pre-populated updates to the XML code behind this Word file, and thus that will generate an error. This is a pretty common mistake. Now, the second mistake that you would note in this case is that our bookmark starts before the item.id merge field and ends behind the item.name merge field, but does not include the item.description merge field. This would also generate an error. So whenever we add a new merge field to an existing template, it is wise to revise the bookmarks that we have, because in this case this will not work. In my case, I'm just going to delete, and what I'm going to do as well is hit enter again and type a space after the item.description merge field. Why is that? If you note in the previous export, that was the failed one, and this one, we don't really have separation between the items. There's no line break, and they're too dense here for reading. So what I want to do is, with the help of this extra space, and if you wish, you could take down the font size to 1 on the space or whatever, so it doesn't really take off space. What you would do with this is to ensure that there will be an extra line of space between each exported requirement or any other type of work item, and thus the entire, the look of the exported data and the way it's read is much more easy, it's more convenient, and it can be handled better. So what remains to do now is to select the entirety of the contents of the template at this time and add the same bookmark. Again, it was loop_item. I'll add this, I'll save the template, and I will navigate back to Codebeamer and retrace the same steps that I was doing before. I will export to Office. I will use my template. Let's wait until it's exported. Here we go. As you can see, the titles, let's say, of each requirement are styled via the heading 1 styling. You have the IDs and the names styled in the way you wanted. And you have the description as well with the line breaks that we introduced via the help of the space that we finally added to the template and then included in the bookmark. So now that we have a basic template, let's look to add some further information to the context of each of the work items that we're exporting. Another common attribute that usually needs to be exported are the downstream references that each work item has. So the merge field in that case can contain several bits of information, the merge field, sorry, so we have quite a few. If needed, you can consult the default template, which includes quite a bit of information when it comes to how to export different characteristics of upstream or downstream reference items. I will navigate back to our demo template. And what I will look to do in this case is to add here a new merge field. But before that, I want to just title an entire section via simple plain text with downstream references. In this case, I will make this bold. Say we can even increase the font size a little bit. Okay. Now, let's add a table. I will add a 2x2 table in this case. In the first row, of course, we can specify the contents of each column. So let's go with downstream reference IDs. And in the second one, let's go with downstream reference names. So the merge field that we're going to be looking to insert here is going to be, again, merge field item dot. And what we're looking for right now is the URL key ID, which means that we can make a clickable link to the actual artifact on Codebeamer. So that would be item dot downstream and then dot URL key ID. The second one will be, if you're intuitive, you can already guess, item dot downstream dot name. Okay, and what I will finally add here is, excuse me, just a message if the particular work item exported does not have any downstream references. In this case, the merge field will be called no downstream message. I will save this. Let's note that an item could have multiple downstream references. So, of course, in that case, and I'll just make these, bold. In that case, what I have to do is include these two merge fields in a secondary loop here. So I'll add the bookmark loop underscore item underscore downstream. Then let's take a look at our loop item bookmark. It includes everything, so we're happy. I will save this, navigate back to Codebeamer, click on Export to Office, upload the template once again. As you can see, in this case, I was told that the particular item does not have downstream references. And in the second case, for the earphone system requirement, the reference IDs are shown here, and the names of the downstream reference items are also shown. If I click on this, I will be redirected to the actual Codebeamer page that stores the downstream requirement. So far, we were exporting pretty common fields such as ID, name, and description. What happens if we want to export a custom field? Just to reiterate the basics of what a custom field is, in the configuration of each tracker, we are able to create custom fields. In my case, this user requirement field, which links each system requirement to its upstream user requirement, is a custom field. How do I know that? I can turn on the property name, in which case if I scroll down, you'll see that this is a choice list. The choice list is just a choice type custom field. Now, if I want to actually export the user requirement and make that the content of one of the merge fields, how do I know which name to use? In this case, the easiest way of doing that would be to navigate to the item in question, any of the items in this tracker. For example, let's go with this media player that meets the current system requirements. And then instead of issue here, we'll have to write REST/item. As you can see now, all the REST API property calls have been listed for this particular item. So in this case, if I just press Control F and start typing user requirement, as you can see, this is the exact merge field that would help us to export the contents of the user requirement field. We would use camel case, so even though in the name of the field you have a capital U, we have to start with a small u, no space between user and requirement, and then capitalize the R in requirement. So let's check out how that works. I'll open up the template. And then after the either list of downstream references or the there is no downstream message block, I will introduce something else, which in this case will be the merge field item dot user. As you will note, the U is small, no space, requirement. Space here. I saved the template. Let's navigate back to Codebeamer. And as usual, let's export the contents of this tracker to Word. As you can see, in this case, the user requirement, simply the name, because I didn't type ID or anything, is listed out as well. So as you can see, we can use a camel-cased label to quite simply export a custom field. But since in this case, the custom field is a choice type field, we can export further properties that belong to the item which is referenced through that field. So we could say that we want to export the item.userRequirement.id or item.userRequirement.name. How do I know all this? Again, you can consult the codebeamer.com/rest/item/the work item ID of the particular item in question. And you can see that under user requirement, you could furthermore export the ID, URI, or the name. So all you have to do for that is to say user requirement dot ID or user requirement dot URI, or again, the same for the name. So to accommodate a table in the custom Word template, what we're going to do is first provide the title of that table. So in our case, that is going to be the table of data that you can see here. I'll make that bold. I'm going to insert table, 3x2 table, because we also have to provide one column for the numbering of each record in the table, for each row. The first one will be the NO, the second one will be the action, and the third one will be the data gathered column. Now, we're going to insert the first merge field. that is going to be item dot, and they will refer to the actual API label of the table. As you can see, that is table of data. So table of, again, camel case. And then for the numbering, what we're going to have to provide here is the num. Then for the action column, which is, if we disregard the numbering, the first actual column of the table in Codebeamer, I'm going to create a merge field with item dot, again, table of data. Sorry, camel case, be careful. Of data, and then col as column 0. Be very careful to always have 0 as the first column. Then I'm going to insert another one, quite logically. It's going to be column 1. So what remains to be done is, of course, there could be multiple columns here, so we'll have to loop these 3 merge fields. I'm going to add a bookmark. I'm going to call it loop underscore item underscore, and again we're going to have to refer to the label. So not table 0 or whatever the custom tables name is in Codebeamer. We're going to use the API label, not the property name. So it's going to be table of data. I'll add this. I'll save the entire template. Just to recap, we'll have to take a look at the loop item bookmark. As you can see, it encapsulates the entire template. Luckily, we also have the bookmarks showing turned on, so you can see the end of the bookmark is here at the bottom. I'll navigate back to Chrome. I've selected only my first requirement here. Then I'll go to export selection. I'll use my template. Click on export again. See the file. And as you can see, the table of data with the column, action, and data gathered is exported. One final thing I would like to introduce to you today are conditional exports. So I'll navigate to Codebeamer to show you what I mean. We have folders, information type items, and just general work items in Codebeamer. When we organize our data into folders, the folders will carry just a few basic metadata like their names, and that's all we're interested in. We don't want to export all sorts of, downstream references, whoever it's assigned to, etc. when it comes to folders. I want to export that detailed description and everything else when it comes to the general work items, which are organized into these folders. When it comes to exporting the characteristics of a folder or attributes or a field, in other words, I just want to know their name. So how to do that in our Word template? If I open up the template itself, I will introduce a second merge field here for item.name. Okay, and I'll throw this item.name merge field into a brand new bookmark. However, something that I have to do before that is to hit space here. Why is that? I really do not want to begin a new bookmark in the exact spot where the whole loop item bookmark begins for the entire contents of the tracker. So this space in between my existing bookmark and the new one will make sure that there are no clashes and that the engine of Codebeamer will understand exactly what is to be done when it comes to exporting the data from the tracker. So I'll hit bookmark and if folder. So when it comes to folders, only the name will be exported. Now I'll just take the existing data here, the detailed description and everything else when it comes to general work items, and I'll throw this into another bookmark, if underscore not underscore folder. Okay, let's save the template. Let's see what happens if I export everything from Codebeamer. First work item, as you will see, has not been organized into any folder, so it stands on its own. All good. Then we have folder A, and we have the work items that belong in folder A. So today we looked at how to export certain fields and attributes when it comes to work items. So each of the merge fields that we wrote were for items. But we also have tracker and project-wide attributes that we can export. So if you take a look, you can see here on the API panel that, for example, we can export certain tracker characteristics, as seen here in the second block, or certain project characteristics, for example, ID, URI, or name. So to give you an example of how that would work, let's go back to our template. And before everything is said and done, we could say that at the very end, we would like to export the project.name. So to do that, again, all we have to do is insert a merge field. Save this, go back here, click on export selection. So right now I'll only export one of these work items. As you can see, it shows you that I am in this and that demo project. Thank you for listening. See you soon.